Hey everyone, this is Olay Shorunke from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Edge Steps, powered by Laddering Your Success. My name is Olay Shorunke. Shorunke? I forgot how to say my last name. I'm so sorry. My name is Olay Shorunke, and I'm here with my good friend, the doctor soon to be, Jamar Crawford. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, happy to be here.
Awesome. As always, so happy to have you. We were just talking about the Beard Gang and how Jamar has taken the mantle and he's leading the charge with the Beard Gang. That's what I'm talking about. My dog. All right. Well, look, folks, without any further ado, we're going to continue on a conversation that we started last week when we were talking about prioritizing self-care and mindfulness, right? We talked about values and principles towards self-care, right? So everyone has their values, their principles that they hold tight to themselves in regarding to self-care. There are some people who, no matter what, on a particular day, if you ask them to do something, they will say no. They are not available that day. They will not be doing anything that day. Why? Because that is just a principle they have regarding that. There's a day that they just choose to not do anything, right? We talked about things like exercise, prayer, reflection, examining yourself. We talked about the fact that this is important, or this is interesting, because how you love people, not how you love people, but no matter what you call it, it's kind of all the same thing, right? Some people say vibes, some people say spirit, right? No matter what you call it, it's the same thing. Okay. Different religions call it different things. Right? We talked about therapy. We talked about the power of therapy and how it helps us with those things. All right. So today, what I want us to talk about is I want to jump in and talk about this notion, this thing that's been really popular recently. And that's been this thing about drugs. It's becoming a lot more open for us to see people using drugs and talking about the benefits, the health benefits of it. And it's very easy for young people, when they hear about those things, to jump on the bandwagon, right? Young people tend to always go for the trends, the trendy thing, the thing that's in style. And with that, of course, drugs are one of those things. And so I want to take it off to you, Crawford. You have so much experience dealing with young people. You have so much experience dealing with people who may have dealt with issues like this. What are your thoughts on young people coming in and saying things like, when I say young, I mean like high school, talking about the benefits of things like marijuana and alternative drugs to help them decompress and help them de-stress?
You froze on my end. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Well, can you say the question again?
Yeah. What are your thoughts, because of your experience in dealing with young people? What are your thoughts on young people looking for these alternative methods to help them de-stress, decompress, such as like marijuana and other, I guess the term is other illicit drugs?
Ooh, that's a interesting topic. What are my thoughts? I think that those students are at that age. I feel like it'd be best if they had persons in their life who can influence them to find other means to deal with the stress and help them with coping mechanisms and stress relieving activities other than the route of, drugs and things of that nature. The reason why I think that is because they're so young still at that age to where, so whatever they're thinking about taking may have some benefits to relieve stress and things of that nature. But I think them being at such a young age, in my personal opinion, I think this is not me advocating for drugs or anything, but I think things being used in moderation, there's a purpose for that. But these beings being so young, they wouldn't have the, in my opinion, the ability to use that at that, kind of rate. I feel like they should move towards, talking to people, getting wise counsel and things of that nature. It's difficult because it's like, oh man, what I think about marijuana, and I do understand that marijuana do have certain effects and it can help certain things. I just feel like they're young of an age, they don't have the mental capacity to handle that in appropriate manner.
No, I agree. I really agree. I'm kind of like you. I go a little bit, in both ways. I think, of course, everything should be done in moderation if you're going to do it. But I also think that kind of like to what you hinted is you have to be in the right environment to be able to do certain things.
Right.
So I think about when I was doing my hours to become a teacher, and I had some really wonderful people who looked out for me and were able to help me get my hours and able to get me into schools when, it was, I kind of missed the time frame to do so. And I'm still thankful to those people till today. And I remember I was able to go to one of the alternative schools and just walk around. And this woman was so amazing. She was so sweet. She was so kind, so caring. And she took me to, I believe it was a 6th or 7th grade class. Then we went to like a 3rd grade class. And then we went to like a kindergarten class. And then we went to just talk with a student who was like 16, 17, or somebody say 17, 18 years old, getting ready to graduate. And she had him write an essay on the benefits of marijuana and how it's helped him. And you can already see, for someone like me who's never really taught in a classroom, I was still getting my hours. I remember, I still remember, it was like, it looked like a scene out of 21 Jump Street or a scene of like a 90s high school show, like one of those dramatic shows. And he's reading the story, and I'm like, what is he? He's talking about weed? Yeah. And it was just such a shock for me, man. Such a shock for me to see that. And but the reason why I love this lady, and just out of respect, I won't say her name because and I'll give that woman her flowers whenever. She was so amazing. She was so patient. She broke it down, and she was just telling him how proud she was of him to be able to express himself like that. And then all these years later, I think back and I tell myself, I don't know. We don't know what this young man was going through. Sometimes, so Dave Chappelle said this quote, and he was talking about some people at, I think it was a group of Black folks sitting in a group, and they were just cursing out loud. And a white man came by and said, "Why do y'all use all that vulgar language?" And one of the dudes turned around and he said, and I'm paraphrasing this story greatly, but he turned around and he said, "Because we live a vulgar life." And so when you really understand, when your environment is vulgar, when your environment is extremely toxic, when your environment is full of violence, trauma, all these different things, you can't go to therapy. I mean, you can, right? But in that environment, it's not readily available. It's not really, let me just say that it's not readily available for you to go and say, "I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that," like other people would in their experiences. Usually people like that turn to alcohol, they turn to drugs, they turn to, some of them turn to violence to let the steam off of whatever it is that they're dealing with. And so I really had to think about that also in relation to our kids. Some of our kids, their basic necessities of life aren't being met. And so because of that, they choose, and I say they choose, and sometimes they're just driven to it, to do those things. And so it's a hard pill to swallow for us, right? Did you want to jump in, Crawford? I saw your spidey senses tingling.
You say my spidey sense. I want to give just a little pushback on something that you said. I feel like I feel like a misconception is that they can't go to counseling and talk to someone. The reason I say that's a misconception is because, we assume that because we are going through some things that we feel like no one else that we can talk to can relate, or no one that look like us or represent us in those fields. I do feel like there should be more people that represent us in like counseling and therapy. But the reason I say that is because when you are talking about our students and their unfortunate situations, they look at me and don't know I came from their exact same situation by the way I am at work. Like they don't even know that. And I have to sometimes put them in a corner and show them with no cameras around where I'm really from. And
what exactly does that look like, Jamar? If you could,
I plead the fifth. But the point, no, but then they realize it's like, oh, and so I reshape the conversation in the sense of you don't have to be a product of your environment. You can choose to let your circumstances define where you go, or can make the choice, you know what? I don't like my circumstances. I can do something about it. Let me do what I have control of, which is, going to school and grades, things of teenagers and adolescents are responsible for, right? So they can do their best within their situation to be this. So, but I do know they might not have someone around to kind of like push them in that right direction, which is going back to your topic, why they might lean on, pharmaceuticals and marijuana and things of that nature. So I just feel like they assume that there's no one that can relate to them, but maybe us as teachers can do a good job at seeming more personable and relatable and understanding to what they might be going through.
Man, absolutely, man. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And I think we do agree, really. I think what it took me I won't say a very long time, but what it took me a while to understand was there's two different types. You see it in a lot of different cultures. I struggled a lot growing up, being lost, because I'm Black, but I don't sound like what many would deem the average Black person to sound like. That comes from stereotypes, that comes from, what we see, right? And that plays a lot into how you how you view the world, how do you approach the world. I've mentioned several times on the Edge of Steps podcast how one of the things I hated hearing the most growing up was, "Oh, you sound white." I used to hate that so much. And growing up where I did grow up, me coming back to the same district to teach there, I know I struggled with that for a long time. Teaching is you have students who look just like you, but because you sound a certain type of way, there's a certain level of disrespect, or there's a level of, honestly, it's just a level of ignorance is what it really is. I think in knowing myself, I have this thing where I naturally change the way I speak depending on where I'm at. Sometimes I don't even notice it. If I'm talking to a person, I can kind of match the way they talk. And I think it's code switching, right?
Switching.
We're code switching, right? That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
And I struggled with being able to relate with my young Black boys because a lot of times they just didn't see me as that guy that they could really go to. It was kind of like he's like me, but he's not 100% like me. And I think that's what gave me a lot of frustration because I kept trying to be like, no, I am. I promise, I really, really am. But you can't do that. I promise, I'm really going through the same things you're going through, man. Trust me. He's like, nah, bro, you got it. That ain't it, bro. That ain't it, bro. And it's like, so I had to learn how to really. It took a lot. It was a big, big step. It took a lot of like working on me to be able to really get down and say, hey, look, just because I sound like this, just because I look like this, well, not because I look like this, just because I sound like this, I may not necessarily act the way that you act. Don't be fooled one bit. Don't be fooled one bit. Going through the same things you've gone through, you know. And so you bring up a really, really, really good point. And I think it's something that still kind of ails us to today. And in a lot of different communities. It's definitely one of those things that ails us, and kind of, in my opinion, I think it holds us back.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Olay once again. You know, these days, many families are busy, but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
I think 2024 needs to be a year of tougher questions being asked. Right?
Yeah.
It needs to be a continuing of that. Go ahead, Crawford.
I think, like, from my experience, going on what you were saying with, relating to the students, what I realized is that it's very difficult for me, from my experience, to relate to the students in that way. So, not that I couldn't relate to them, to get them to relate to me, to where it's like, oh, we've been through that as a teacher, as their teacher. And the reason why I say I realized that is because, let's say my boys, they see me as this authoritative figure in the classroom. And so it's like, well, I'm not going to talk to him about what I have going on because he's the teacher. And yes, I am that person in the classroom, but I feel like as a teacher, we have so many hats to try to wear that even though I do extend that invitation to them, like, hey, man, you can talk to me about anything, just pull me to the side and ask to speak to me out in the hallway, I will always make the time for you. But because we wear so many hats, it's like, okay, I'm teaching this lesson. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I'm the parent. I'm their teacher. I have to be the disciplinarian. I'm playing all these roles. And a lot of time I'm handling discipline. And so they're reluctant to kind of speak to me about what they have going on. But what I have realized, the students that I have gotten through to, is when I spent time with them outside of the classroom, every single time. When I was working at a district before where I'm at now, I had a student, he was a real big knucklehead, couldn't behave in class and anything like that. But I didn't have those problems with him because, like, I took him under my wing or whatever, but I spent more time with him outside the classroom, like outside of this. Like, I went by his house, we hooped, we played basketball, we played football, we played catch, like doing things like that got him to see me as a person, and he was able to like open up and build a rapport to where in the classroom, I had absolutely no issues with him. Not because he wasn't the same kid, he's still the same kid. It's just that it's a different type of rapport me and him have. So when he would be himself, I just look at him, he just chill out because of that rapport we established. And I've seen that with many students that I take the time to do things with them. And I feel like that's kind of difficult as a teacher because you can't really do that with all the kids. It's so I feel like that has helped spending time with them outside of the classroom in a non-academic environment to kind of build that human relationship, not just teacher-student. And then maybe they could share these things that they're going through, and we can kind of nudge them in a direction to where they can receive support with dealing with whatever stress that they're going through. So.
No,
that's
absolutely.
so difficult nowadays with all kind of allegations with teachers and things like that. That's the only thing, because I was like, man, I don't do that no more. And I was like, why don't do that no more? But shoot, the environment is so messed up. I don't even want to offer.
What was the thing that I was saying when we took our guy out?
I'm not gonna repeat that on here. Nah, but yeah, that's the thing. I feel like just in these school systems, we do need a space for our students to be able to talk, and it's in a non-academic environment to where what they say is not gonna be held against them, to where they're not gonna get in trouble or something like that, so they can have that safe space to maybe share what they're going through. And piggybacking off of last session, I remember Festus saying, we can't always outsource or their nature. Let's come up, let's problem solve, let's have something embedded within the school system that we can actually support these students, actually do something, not just more than just have a gathering in an auditorium and just talk, because they're not listening. You know what I'm saying? I don't be listening. Yeah. But do things to where we're doing actual activities. We're actually practicing stress management activities that has nothing academics. Like, this is just something I'm coming off the top right now.
No, for sure. No, absolutely, man.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Olay. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show, because it's some good topics.
So many good points there. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. So I'm gonna start with a story. I remember a couple of weeks ago, it was actually the day before Thanksgiving. I was driving home and something told me to stop at the dollar store right next to the school that we used to work at. Something said, stop at the dollar store, and then dollar stores. And I said, okay. So if you've been listening for a while, you've heard me mention kind of what Crawford was talking about, where I loved engaging in community. So I would drive around and go to the Dollar Tree right by the school. I go to the other dollar store. My parents still live 5 minutes away from the school that I worked at, so I was still in the neighborhood. And you're absolutely right, Crawford. When the kids see you outside of the confines of the school building, it changes the dynamic. They no longer see you as Mr. So-and-so. They may call you that, but it's you're dressed down. You're not wearing what you normally, what you're used to wearing. And there's still a level of reverence and respect, but the shield that is up between teacher and student is now removed, and it's now student and adult, right? And this is a trusted person, hopefully, right, that you're communicating with, you're engaging with. But either way, I went into the dollar store, I walked around, I bought some zip ties, and then I stopped at an aisle, and I just stopped. And as I stopped, one of my students from the previous year just walked up. I hope I didn't tell the story last week. Did I say this? Okay. So as soon as I stopped, one of my students from last year just walks right up with his mother. And I said, hey, what's going on? He was like, not much. And so I was just talking to him. He was a knucklehead as well. And I just told him that, he's a great kid. And no matter what they say, always remember he's a great kid. And then I gave him a hug. They gave him a hug. His mom kind of like grabbed him and was like, that's enough. That's enough. That's a whole nother story, because she probably didn't remember me because she didn't come and she wasn't engaged in his life. She didn't realize I was his teacher last year, but that's neither here nor there. I no longer teach, so that's not my problem. That's your problem, not Crawford. So I ended up going to the other dollar store and seeing another one of the students from last year. She wasn't my student, but she knew of me, and I would talk with her sometimes. And she was there with her mother. And to me, man, that is literally how community is built. If you have someone like teachers, trusted adults that are around and able to just build relationships and learn together, that's how we start to gain a common ground with a lot of these things that we do. But what I want to do quickly is I want to go back and I want to talk about this drug thing, because I think this drug thing is a pretty big thing. And I want to talk about it by talking about myself. I want to talk about my struggles with that and the dangers of that. And that's why part of the reason why I brought it up. So before I became a teacher, I was doing a lot of bartending. And, if you talk to people who work in bartending, the life it's very easy to get caught up in that life. You can, alcohol, obviously, you can turn to a lot of alcoholism, which I did. I turned to a lot of, doing a lot of drinking, not realizing at the time, dealing with a lot of binge drinking. Binge drinking is just the overconsumption of alcohol over a time period, right? So to give you an example, if you're having, I would say 3 to 5 drinks in an hour, you're probably binge drinking. You're doing a little too much. And that's what I would do at times. And that can sort of lead you down a path. And so for a lot of people, they're able to manage. But one thing I learned about myself is I have an addictive personality, which means if you're doing something and it feels good, or if you're doing something and you're not paying attention, it's very easy for you to make this habit. This is for good and bad things, right? But we're highlighting the bad here because we want to offer solutions. And so, there was a point where I was smoking a lot of marijuana. I was smoking a lot. I sound like someone's uncle over there smoking that marijuana. Sorry. But I was smoking the devil's lettuce. Sorry. But I was smoking a lot of weed. I was smoking a lot. And as cheap as I am, that's saying a lot, because it's not cheap at the time. It's not cheap, it's not free. So, I was smoking a lot, and that led to a lot of laziness and a lot of lazy behavior, a lot of lethargy. Wasn't very productive, or as productive as I could be. Now, I was very calm. It did help me calm down to an extent, right? But then it just turned into this habit that I was just just doing it over and over again. And so you would just spend days on end just laid out, tired, just laid out, not doing anything, not being productive. And then it slowly started to go into some other things. I was going out to some different raves. So, I had some friends that talked about Molly. So I did Molly a couple times, and I really liked that. And then I tried some acid, and I really liked that. And then I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm going to try and do every drug, right? And that's what happens. And so I remember in the 90s, they used to talk a lot about marijuana being a gateway drug. And a lot of people saying, oh, it's not a gateway drug. Da, 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 da. I'm here to tell you from personal experience, under the right conditions, marijuana is a gateway drug. Okay. So listen to me. I done did it. Okay. It is a gateway drug. Because of the euphoric feeling and those things, and all those other things, it will lead you always chasing something, always chasing the next high. It will lead you always chasing the next high. And so I think for a lot of young people who are dealing with trauma, who are dealing with stress, who are dealing with a lot of these things, you have to be extremely, extremely careful with those things. In the wrong hands, those can be the difference between life and death. Those things can be the difference between life and death. I'm telling you from personal experience. I almost died. I OD'd. I basically I don't know, I want to say I OD'd, but I took too many bars one night, and no one could find me for like 24 hours. No one could find me. Right. And I remember after it happened, I was like, oh man, it's crazy, yada, yada, yada. But I had to really sit down and I had to ask myself, I was like, my guy, is this really what we should be doing right now? Is this really what we should be doing right now? Is this really where it's at? Right. And so, all I'm gonna say is just you have to tread very lightly. I know there are a lot of scientific articles and journals about the benefits of THC and all these other things, the calming effects, and the science is amazing, right? That they're doing the studies and the research that they're doing. And I know there's a place for this stuff. There's a place for the CBD. There's a place for these things. All I'm saying is this act of using it as a release or a way to escape, that's not going to help you. What's really going to help you is facing your trauma. What's really going to help you is facing the stress, facing the issues that you're dealing with today, that you're dealing with right now. All right. Jamark, did you have anything you want to drop in on that?
Yeah, I just feel like that, like I said, using it, and then especially at this age to where they get that euphoric feeling, it's so easy for it to become addictive, especially when they're using it as an escape, as you just said. It's like, okay, oh, if I didn't solve the problem, or sometimes some problems can't be solved, but if I didn't learn coping mechanisms to deal with the events that are going on in life that I don't have the current power to change, let me continue to escape. Now every day I'm escaping. And now that particular outlet has taken over and consume, you know what I'm saying? Versus using whatever kind of strategies outside of, pharmaceuticals and marijuana and things of that nature to give us a chance to allow our brains to actually develop, so that we can develop discernment, when to do things, when not to do things. Like when you said for yourself on your personal experience, when you did one thing and want to try another thing, and that led to other things that you tried, to where you had the realization that, hey, maybe I need to be more aware and cognizant of what I'm doing, right? You are able to do that because you didn't indulge in these things at your teenage years, right? To the point to where, like, you're hooked. You done it at this point in your life to where, okay, I tried it. I am acknowledging that I like whatever euphoric feeling this is bringing to me. I'm going to indulge. But at some point, you realize that, okay, I'm tripping. This might not be the best thing for me to do, but your brain had that chance to develop. For our teens and our young people, I don't think they have that. Well, I know they don't have that cognitive development to have that discernment to be like, okay, I need to use this in moderation if I'm using it for stress or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so that leads us actually to our next topic. I wanted to think about how this relates to us for our young people in the 7 different chapters of LYS. So from an educational standpoint, self-care is super, super important at this time because a lot of you are entering sophomore, junior, senior year. Well, you're in high school, so you're anywhere between a freshman and a senior. Self-care is really, really important because you're dealing with your parents, you're dealing with your friends, you're dealing with your post high school life, you're dealing with grades and projects and all these other things. Some of y'all be wilded, and I mean that in a good way. Some of y'all, I don't know how y'all do it. Some of y'all got a job. You are in like a club, like one of those National Honor Society clubs. You play a sport, you do projects, and you still manage to like get all your chores done at home. Right? Or some of you do all of those things and you barely manage to get your chores done at home. And I've heard stories of young people just having like these breakdowns, and they're just like, I don't know what more to do. I don't know what to do. I'm completely lost. This is the time where you have to write out your plan. What are you doing for your self-care? What are you doing to make sure that you're able to take care of your education? I mentioned it earlier. There's some people who on a particular day or after this time, you can't get in contact with them because either they're sleeping or their phone cuts off or they're just not doing it. I've seen a lot. The older I get, the more I meet people who have these hard lines that they just don't break. Great example. That guy, Daniel Hill, our ambassador. Everyone knows on Saturdays, you can ask him to do something, but if it requires a lot of work, or if it requires him to use his brain in a way he doesn't feel comfortable, he will not do it. And the first couple times he was like, I mean, we'll see. That's what he would say. We'll see. I'll see what's up. But then he just came out and said it. On Saturdays, I really don't do much. And so he that was for him. He said that's basically his Sabbath. That is his day of rest. He is not trying to do anything. Anything he wants to do that day is something that makes him happy, something that he actually wants to do. And I 100% totally respect that. Because if you don't have that break for yourself and you're just going 100 miles per hour, you're not going to make it. You're going to break down. You're going to break down. No one's designed for that. Okay. So you got to have those things in place. You got to have something. If it's meditation, if it's prayer, if it's taking a day break, if it's a shut off time where you don't do anything. Everyone needs to have that break, that time break, right, for themselves. You have anything you want to drop, Jamark, for those in high school? I feel like there's something else that I'm probably missing, and something that these kids should be doing when it comes to that stuff.
I think what you were saying is basically making sure they give themselves that time to decompress. I'm just reinforcing what you say. I agree with you 100%. Taking the time to just decompress and not just always be on the go. I know they going through what they're going through, and the situations seem hard, but it's real good to just take time for yourself to just let those thoughts run, get them out of your system. If they can, just find someone that they can trust and talk to get it out of their system. Also, crying, man. I know adolescents nowadays want to seem all tough and hard, but crying is not a sign of weakness, man. Let it out, release it. You don't have to cry in front of people if you don't want to. Have that time too, taking that time for yourself to release it and cry and just get it out of you. And also think of things that you enjoy doing, and you can focus your energy towards that. If you are a young athlete and you enjoy playing basketball and things of that nature, you can, when you want to, when you have the time, you can put energy into that. Put energy into things that are productive, not deconstructive, So
Absolutely. Man. Thank you for that. Absolutely. I wanted to talk about how it affects us in health, that self-care. The body is an amazing organism in the fact that things that are happening inside can manifest themselves in the physical. So things that are happening inside of your body, they sometimes can manifest themselves to where they're visible. You can see them, or it affects how your body moves. It affects how you function, how you speak, how you look. So, if someone's like, man, your eyes are always red, or you're breaking out and this and that, right? Our bodies have these ways of telling us that, hey, slow down, right? If you know how you normally feel when you get a good 8 hours of rest and you're able to, function all the way through, you're able to do this, knock this out, you might want to think about that. That rest is key. And as I'm talking, I'm speaking into myself. That's the biggest thing about LYS. We don't want to say things that we don't try to do ourselves, right? So that is a super, super huge key. Health as well, right?
Hey, LYS fam, it's Olay. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
Dr. Crawford, anything you want to drop in on that?
No.
Okay.
You got it.
So I wanted to talk quickly also about the social aspects and how that affects us with social. Self-care, this is what we talked about last week, and I think this can be the last point we talk about today. The social circle is key. The social circle is key. Having a group of people who you can trust, listen to me, that you can trust, that are disciplined, that have integrity, that goes a long way. There is just something to say for your friends. Sometimes, right now I'm thinking about, Crawford, Hill, Festus, a couple other people. If we're all around and they hear me go like this, Hill usually laughs because Hill does a really good job. He kind of knows when someone's about to drop some knowledge, right? So for me, it's when I take a deep breath in. For Crawford, it's when Crawford, probably kind of leans back, or Crawford will lean in, and he'll be like, "Oh, I'm just ignorant to it. I'm just asking for me for further evaluation, so I can understand myself." So as Crawford would say, so I can seek to understand. Everyone has these ways. You don't know those things unless you have deep relationships with those people. And that's the important thing about that social circle. Your social circle is very, very important. They will tell you when you are not 100% yourself. They will tell you when something seems off, because these people know you deeply and personally, right? And I can say that, it's so crazy. I always talk about this. Ever since I got closer with Jamark and Daniel, when I got to the 5th grade side, it's just, I don't know, our friendship has just blossomed. And it's just great to have people who know you like that, who can see, who you can trust, who you can be open and vulnerable and transparent with. And there's no judgment, I remember when there was a letter I wrote when I was working at the school. I was in charge of one of the groups, and there was a letter that I was going to send to everyone. And I sent it to Crawford, and Crawford said, "Dang, I'd fire you if you wrote this about me." And I busted out because it's good to have friends that you can trust that will give you that honest feedback. I'm telling you, there's something to say for people. My parents used to always say, both my mom and my dad said this: if we didn't love you, if we didn't care about you, we wouldn't tell you what we're telling you. And I know sometimes you meet people like me who can say things and it comes off as brash or rude, but believe it or not, it comes from a place of love. And so just keep that in mind. You're in high school, you're in college. The goal is not to be the most popular. That's not the goal. Trust me. 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, they'll say you were popular, but no one really cared. The relationships and the friendships you make right now, those are the things that are going to last with you. The lessons that you learn right now, those are the things you're going to learn right now. And Dr. Crawford, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it up with you for any final words that you want to drop in on.
Please use any resources that you have. Please talk to someone if you have a friend, a family member, someone that you can talk to. Please release it. Just please do so. Get guided counsel. Don't do anything without being aware of the consequences that may follow, or the repercussions or the effects of certain things. I know the topic that we're talking about are drugs. So please just be very, very aware of that before we make any kind of decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So thank you all. That is going to be the show for today. As we inch closer and closer to the end of our 2nd year, I think. Wow, that is amazing. We got the 10th, the 17th, the 24th. Wow, we have 4 more shows because 24 plus 7 is 31. So we got 4 more shows until the end of the year 2023. So it's been a heck of a ride. I want to thank you, Jamark, for being there with us through everything, man. I love you. Thank you so much for all that you've done, your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, your caring spirit, your kind spirit, your thoughtful words. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much you being here every week impacts not just us, but the people that we're trying to help, man. I thank you so much, and I love you, brother.
Man, I'm just happy to be a part of this movement, man. Just thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So for that guy who's at the Texans game, I hope he's enjoying the Texans game, Daniel Hill, and for Festus Amoye, my name is Olay Shorunke. This is Jamar Crawford. Remember, folks, there are legitimate reasons to not getting, you know what? I'm not even going to do that because I'm going to mess it up. This is Educentral, your success. Thank you so much. Festus is not here to do it, and I can't remember it, so I'm not going to screw it up. Y'all take care. We will see you next week. Y'all be blessed now.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.